Delighted to be joined now by columnist at the Times and security specialist Edward Lucas as well. Very good morning to you, Edward.
Morning, Julia.
Thank you for joining us. I want to talk about both what's going on in Ukraine and the ceasefire talks, but also first what's been going on inside the White House, and almost at war with themselves over this revelation of this leak of this signal chat between not just the Vice President, the Defence Secretary, National Security Advisor, Secretary of State. I mean, you name it, everyone involved was at a very, very high level in this signal chat that was leaked to a leading left-wing Democrat supporting journalist. This, of course, has been dominating news in America, has huge implications for intelligence sharing here as well. But what do you make of the Trump officials who now, including Donald Trump himself and the Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth, attacking the journalist Jeffrey Goldberg, who revealed this after the information was no longer of import because the attack on the Houthi rebels had already taken place, but crucially basically keeping back what he believed was classified information. The White House and others saying there was no classified information. He's now released the full chat, clearly revealing to anyone with half a brain that there was stuff in there that should have remained top secret. What do you make of the White House response?
Well, I think if this was an episode of The West Wing, they would call it when you're in a hole, stop digging. And given that they all knew what was on that signal chat, to deny that there was anything classified in those messages, in the knowledge that an entire copy of the chat was in the hands of the guy who was writing about it, looks to me like a pretty stupid move. And I think that a head is going to have to roll for this. I wonder if National Security Advisor Waltz is going to stay in his position, because
there was some talk about him being ousted, but then we're told that the president has full faith in him.
Well, that's often a sign, as you know, that someone's for the chop. I mean, I'd be terrified if my bosses said we have full confidence in Edward Lucas. Getting onto LinkedIn to look for another job immediately. But I think it is embarrassing. And I think this kind of shoot the messenger approach works well up to a point. And it's true that, you know, a lot of the American media is so absolutely gripped with their hatred of Trump that whatever he does, they'll say it's bad. But this was a genuine mistake. If anyone more junior had done this, they would not only be fired, but probably prosecuted and quite likely jailed. Yeah. And for a lot of the sort of, you know, very patriotic Americans who support Donald Trump because they want to make America great again, they know that America has real secrets and real military capabilities, and they care about that, and they want those capabilities to be safeguarded.
Yeah. And indeed, there are service personnel involved in those attacks on Houthi rebels who may have been put at risk. But this is the thing: there is definitely, you know, Trump derangement syndrome on the left, the Democrat side. Anything he says, even if he, you know, he says something completely sensible, like Europe should be paying more for their own defence, they lose their minds. But they also lose their minds in defending this, saying nothing bad has happened, when these are the same people who cheered along with, you know, lock her up, when Donald Trump in 2016 said that Hillary Clinton should be locked up for using an email server and her own personal email for some State Department matters, which she absolutely should not have done and was wrong to do so. But to complain about that and then not have any issue whatsoever with this signal equivalent like WhatsApp type group is frankly risible. It's laughable, isn't it?
Well, I think, Julia, you better be careful if you're planning to go to the United States anytime soon. They may check out your broadcasting history when you get to immigration and say you're not the kind of person that should be in America because of your critical attitude to the great leader. You're right, there is Trump derangement syndrome on both sides. There are people who lose their minds when they're critical of him and fail to see all the faults of the Democrats. But there's also Trump derangement syndrome among his fans who believe that the great helmsman can do no wrong. It's almost sort of North Korean in their adulation. And I think the real point here is that this isn't just some kind of game. This isn't the West Wing. It's not the thick of it. This is real stuff. There are real soldiers taking real risks on real operations. There are real spies who take real risks with real sources to get secrets that really matter. And so this isn't some kind of game. There's also real alliances. You know, countries like Britain, which have sent their men and women in uniform uncomplainingly to die in operations all over the world, US-led, often of questionable success and planning. And for us to be told that we're random allies, random countries that haven't fought a war in 30 or 40 years, that we're that doesn't go down very well. It's all very well to beat up on some of the useless allies, but America America's greatness is based on really serious allies, and that includes the United Kingdom. And I don't think that they've quite realised how badly this is going down.
No, exactly. Gosh, I can remember post 9/11 being in New York in I think it was December 2001, and if you walked into a bar, Virginia, you couldn't buy a drink. People would not even they said, no, your drinks are on us. Thank you so much for your for being so Britain being such a great ally. You think, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm not fighting at all, but thanks very much. I'll take my free glass of wine. A very, very different attitude now, doesn't it, Phil? Let's also talk about where we are with Ukraine. These ongoing ceasefire talks of a ceasefire in the Black Sea only benefits Russia, really. But again, once again, as Emmanuel Macron pointed out at talks with Zelensky yesterday, Putin changes the terms even after he's agreed to terms. But it was very interesting, I think, mostly yesterday with this meeting in Paris, and we've got our Prime Minister and other leading figures meeting the coalition of the willing in Europe today to talk about what they can do. Doesn't sound like there's many in the willing list, but it was interesting that President Zelensky, in interviews that he has done with British media, talking about how, look, he wants Europe to stay on side with him and the Ukrainian people. And he points out that, Vladimir Putin is going to die before him. Basically, he's an old man. There's concerns about his or beliefs about his ill health. I'm just wondering if how long we can wait, because I imagine Vladimir Putin does get the best medical care going.
Yes, he doesn't look terribly healthy, I have to say. And this
also, he needs a better plastic surgeon.
Puffy face, Botox, there's all sorts of theories. There's also theories that there are actually several Putins. He's got body doubles. Yes. Some of the people who appear on telly claim to be the president of Russia seem to have differently shaped ears to some of the other people, but that may just be a conspiracy theory. It's certainly an entertaining one. Well, I think it's very interesting that Zelensky seems remarkably cheerful, given that the military position isn't great and the diplomatic position isn't great. And my take on the talks in Riyadh and this so-called deal that was produced at the end of it, or deals, was that really Ukraine got knifed and Russia got rewarded. The Russian readout is that they're getting sanctions relief on their agricultural and fertilizer exports, which would, of course, be extremely useful for the United States, which needs to get its fertilizer from somewhere that isn't Canada, now that they're picking a fight with the Canadians. And so there's in this sort of transactional Trump world, why not do a deal with Russia, get lots of fertilizer, and the Ukrainians can suck it up, and so can the Europeans.
It's not much a point of us, being coalition of the willing, hopefully, and wanting more sanctions on Russia to push to the table if Donald Trump is basically saying you can have what you want.
Yes, I mean, the Europeans actually do matter quite a lot in this. It's in Europe, for example, that most of the Russian central bank assets, which were frozen at the start of the war, are still sitting. And I think that the more that Trump pushes Europe, the more Europe is getting its act together, whether it's on the military side or on other diplomatic things. And I think we may well see movement on those 300 billion dollars worth of central bank assets that could be spent on, give that to Ukraine and they can buy the weapons they need, even if the Americans won't send them. But there is a fundamental problem that the Europeans are very dependent on American military, intelligence, nuclear and other security support, something that has actually suited the United States largely over the years. And if we are going to, if we're on a collision course with the White House over Ukraine, where the White House is saying make peace, and Ukraine says we want to keep fighting, and we say we're with you, Ukraine. Well, what happens when we actually collide? Because we are not in a great position to bluff on this.
No, indeed.